So how much should you be concerned? Well, very,
Hmm.
very. This is the biggest economic story of our lifetimes. In the next 10 to 15 years, we are going to see unemployment creep from 4% to upwards of 20%. And yes, there will be unrest and people will get uncomfortable, but there's not going to be full on revolts because the people that have the power are going to keep getting wealthier and richer and they're going to act like barons, like true technological barons of society.
Hello and welcome to Being Exponential with Luke Lango, where we'll go over technology, the markets, the economy, and even lifestyle, all from an exponential perspective. I'm your host, Brooke. It is July 1st, and let's dive right in. Okay, Luke, it looks like you are also in another place today. Where you at, man?
Yet again, when you live in Phoenix, Arizona, you gotta get away from Phoenix, Arizona during the summer as much as you can. So, we're in San Diego today. This is my
Okay.
hometown, and it's my birthday. It's my 30th birthday. Welcome to the 30s. Yeah, it's good to be spending my 30th birthday in what I think is probably one of, if not the prettiest places in America. Go San Diego, go Padres. No Charger loyalty they left us, just the Padres. Go Padres.
Right. Yeah, San Diego it's great, man. Every time I'm there, it's like, oh, this is like the perfect weather day. Almost like every time I go.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
pretty
we
nice.
got some clouds right now, a little coastal overhang, but that'll break, and then yeah, by noon it'll be wonderful. Nice 72, 73, and sunny with a
Mhm.
nice little breeze. Great summer weather, especially when you're coming from 115 over in Phoenix. So
Oh yeah. Oh
there
yeah.
you are.
Perfect for a birthday.
Perfect for a birthday.
Yeah. All right, cool, man. Let's dive right into the episode. So we're gonna bring it back this week with humanoid robots or robots in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I just saw an article. Amazon is on the cusp of having almost more robots than they do humans in their warehouses. It's getting to the point where more and more robots are taking over. We have robots playing soccer in China. It was like a 3-on-3 autonomous robot match.
Mm-hmm.
It's just ramping up. Can you give us some insight onto how you feel about this? How much we should be concerned? How much robots and AI will affect job loss in the future? And also, maybe how do we profit off of this?
So how much should you be concerned? Well, very,
Mm,
very. This is the biggest economic story of our lifetimes. Maybe of the past 2,000 years, honestly. Because when you think about what AI is capable of doing today, Salesforce CEO came out and said that Mark Benioff came out and said that AI is doing 30 to 50% of all the work at Salesforce.
right.
Wow. Microsoft created an AI that beat doctors at diagnosing diseases, correctly diagnosing patient diseases more correctly and earlier.
The numbers on that are actually pretty shocking. I looked into that a little bit. It is 20% prognosis accuracy on real doctors, and then upwards of 80% with that AI that Microsoft made. So it's kind of
Exactly.
crazy.
And I mean, the really scary thing about that is doctors, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that is one of the hardest professions to train for. You go to school for over 10 years, you do residencies. Like, there's so much knowledge that is gained in the process of becoming a doctor. It's not like I just, no offense to real estate agents out there, but I could just wake up the next morning and decide I want to go into real estate, do a little bit of studying, take the exam, and then go start
Right.
selling homes. That's not the doctor world, right? The doctor world is you have to study forever and ever and ever. And then finally, in your late 20s or early 30s, you get into the actual profession of being a doctor. Um, and AI is beating those people.
Yeah.
Right, like that's the really scary part. In Salesforce, that's one of the biggest, most legitimate tech companies in the world, and AI is doing a lot of their work. I mean, when you really think about it, and you sit back and think about it, AI started in late 2022 in earnest, right, with the launch of
Hmm.
ChatGPT. So we're not even 3 years old yet, right? AI, I like to look at AI as being, 2.5. Its third birthday is going to be in November of 25. So it's not even three. And it's already doing doctor's work. And it's already doing, 50% of the work at Salesforce. And then now you have, so everyone's like, okay, knowledge work is done, but thank God I'm a plumber. Thank God I'm doing physical labor. Thank God I'm in construction because AI can't do that. It can't jump off the screen.
Right.
Well, it is jumping off the screen, right? It very much is jumping off the screen. Go watch that humanoid robot match that was in what was the name of the university? Tixing something. I forget the name of the university. But it was a university in Beijing. Like you said, it
Right.
was 3-on-3. It wasn't Ronaldo out there. It wasn't Messi out there. But I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that they were still playing soccer, I mean, the agility, the balance, the real time decision making that requires, if they can do that, they can sweep floors. If they can do that, they can build homes. If they can do that, they can work in factories. Amazon's
Hmm.
got a million robots, like you said, almost outpacing or outnumbering the number of human workers there. So when you really think about it, it's like, what is safe? What on earth is safe? Production, VO3, the Google
VO3.
model, right? I mean, sure, it's
Yep.
only doing 8-second clips today. For those who don't know, this is a thing where you just put in a text prompt and it'll give you a 8-second video of that text prompt. Hyper realistic, super high quality, literally like Hollywood level. I mean, you're the production guy more than me. Would you say, I mean, you've seen some of the VO3 clips. Would you say
Mhm.
that that's like Hollywood level type stuff?
It is. I mean, technically, it's not Hollywood like it. It is. There was a commercial that came out that was purely VO3, I believe,
There you go.
last month. Because I remember the first couple of AI videos, and it looked like shit. To be
Yeah,
honest,
they
I was
were
like,
awful.
okay,
Like I remember,
yeah,
in the Innovation Investor newsletter that we run, we had a little portion of it. We send daily notes every day. Every day, I'm sending
yeah,
out daily observations about the market and technology to all my subscribers. And we used to have a section in there that was like an AI generated image from Dolly. And like they were fun and cute back in the day. This was
it
back
was
in
cool.
22, 23. They were cute and fun back in the day, but ultimately we kind of ended that little part of the service because I mean, it wasn't that great, right? But
Right.
now with VO3, it's like now I want to reintroduce that, but with videos. Like feed it the entire script. I write 2,000 to 3,000 words a day on what's happening in the market. Feed it that entire script and say put it together, a little video on this. Like it's not there yet, but it will be soon. Like so when you really think about it, again, all of the verticals that AI can
Mhm.
impact, what is safe? I'm not sure much is safe. And then there's the argument. So I sit down with family and I have this conversation all the time. It's like, you got to be worried about your job. You got to be worried about your job. You got to learn how to use AI. There's two camps of people, right? There's the camp that's, you're right. You're absolutely right. I need to learn how to use AI. I'm bought in. I need to do this. Then there's the other camp where it's like, oh, it's never going to happen. The humans aren't going to let it happen. There's going to be revolts and there's going to be pitchforks and riots and all that stuff. And, I get that argument, but I think it's kind of it's uninformed because if you look at the numbers on the economy, what the AI jobs apocalypse is going to do is it's going to be a shift in wealth from the labor class to the capital class. So you're going to get rid of jobs, you're going to get rid of salaries, you're going to get rid of workers. But you're doing that because you're expanding corporate profit margins and increasing profits for shareholders. So if you are a shareholder, if you are in the capital class, you are actually gaining wealth. So it's this massive reverse Robin Hood thing going on. That's what the AI jobs apocalypse is. That can sustain itself up to
Yeah.
about, I mean, there are lots of studies that show this. That can sustain itself up to about 20-25% structural unemployment. That the economy can continue to turn if we have 20-25% structural unemployment so long as there is wealth shifting to the upper class because the upper class already does most of the spending. So yeah, maybe Dollar Tree and Family Dollar really get hurt by this, but Target doesn't, right? So like there, and travel
Right.
stuff doesn't, and luxury stuff doesn't. So like, so long as there is a wealth shift going on, it's not a wealth destruction, it's a wealth shift. So long as there are wealth shifts going on, the U.S. economy can actually continue to post positive GDP growth, even if we get 20% unemployment, because of the wealth shifts to the capital class. We're at 4% unemployment right now. If we shift upwards to 20%, I mean, that's 16 points to go. That's Great Depression level stuff. If you're
Mm.
telling me the economy can continue to turn and we go up to that point, what I'm telling you is that we are going to get there. In the next 10 to 15 years, we are going to see unemployment creep from 4% to upwards of 20%. And yes, there will be unrest and people will get uncomfortable, but there's not going to be full on revolts because the people that have the power are going to keep getting wealthier and richer and they're going to act like barons, like true technological barons of society. And we're kind of moving back to that serfdom model that we had during, the medieval times. Like, I really
Yeah.
think we're moving back to that. So, if you kind of like take all that into consideration, yes, eventually there will be riots and pitchforks and people with fire, trying to burn down Bezos's house and Musk's house and all that stuff. But it's going to be a while before that happens. And in the meantime, in that 10 to 15 year period, it's going to be a painful, painful, painful transition for the entire working class, or at least most of the working class. And I think it's a big story that you have to pay attention to, not just for investment implication purposes, but lifestyle implication purposes. This changes everything. The rules of work change more than they changed with the internet, more than they changed with the industrial revolution, more than they changed really pretty much with anything probably except the invention of the wheel, which at that point in time there really wasn't a labor class and a capital class, right? So
Mhm.
this is why I think this is the biggest economic shift uh, that maybe humanity has ever seen, and I think it's going to play out in the next 10 years. So I think it's a massive, massive, massive story.
Yeah, I think the best name for it I've heard so far is techno feudalism to kind of describe the shift in wealth and just labor in general. You know, the wealth goes up to tech elites, and then the shareholders, and then everybody else. You're just kind of existing in a state of unrest. Right now, I would say it's unrest, but it is going to be pretty crazy. Do you think? I personally think there has to be some form of UBI in the next 10 years. And I know the
That's
CEO of
exactly where
Anthropic.
I was going. That's exactly where I
Yeah,
was going is the UBI thing. That I mean that's I think where we inevitably end up.
you
And I
kind of
think
have
it's
to,
no
right?
coincidence that the people pushing for it are the tech barons. Right.
Mm,
It is the billionaire tech boys that are like, we need UBI. UBI is coming because they don't want the pitchforks at their gates. You know what I
you
mean?
can't have
Like
it. Yeah.
they are going to be the ones to blame. I'm not. I love them, hate them. Elon Musk, he's going to be a big person to blame for the labor shift or the wealth shift that's about to
Right.
happen because of AI. I mean, he's the one creating self-driving cars. What
Mm,
happens when every car can actually drive itself? Where do all the Uber drivers go? Where do all the truck drivers go? Right,
yeah, we've
that
already
is a
seen what happened to
massive.
taxi drivers.
But exact where what these people do, they don't have work anymore. There is
Yeah.
no work for them. So, and then Optimus, the humanoid robot. I mean, that goes into factories, that goes into homes. What about what happens to cleaners? What happens to people that work in factories? What
Mm,
happens to construction? If they can start building things. So he's going to be a big driver of this wealth shift. There will be pitchforks and fire and stuff at his gates. He doesn't want that, and so he probably would be a proponent of UBI, and so would a lot of these other Sam Altman and all these other people that are pushing forward AI. I think that it's not a coincidence that they're the ones that are the biggest proponents of UBI because they think that that's the only way that they're going to be allowed to aggregate all this wealth and keep all that wealth, or else there's going to be a forced wealth redistribution from them. So yeah, I just think that UBI is an inevitable outcome here.
right.
Um, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that does to our debt levels. I don't know who funds that. I don't know any of the details of that. Those are going to be ironed out in DC at some point. But I think it's an inevitable outcome, and I think that has big implications for the economy as well as for stocks.
I think CEO of Anthropic mentioned an AI tax on companies that
Right.
use AI. That'd probably be like the first step in, transitioning to that UBI model. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, because it's going to have to be a forced wealth redistribution
Yeah.
away from AI firms, AI stocks, and so that's what I think is going to happen. Is I think that really we're going to get this. and we've talked about it, right? Like the market's been
Mhm.
exceptionally narrow. The stock market's been exceptionally narrow. It's been AI stocks going up like crazy, going straight vertical, and everything else not doing anything, not doing doggone anything. So that's going to continue, and that's going to blow up into an epic divide, like way bigger than you saw in 1998 and 99 during the dot-com boom. Everyone's like, "Oh, that was crazy," and we're going to get to that level, and then it's all going to pop. No, we're going to get to that level, and then it's going to go even more. It's going to go even further. The
Right.
divide's going to get even bigger because the internet was not doing your work. AI is. Fundamental difference. Wrap your head around it. This is way bigger than the internet. Okay, so that divide's going to get significantly larger. As it does get significantly larger, you're going to have so much wealth aggregation and concentration in the AI world, in the AI universe, that the only way to support everything else is to take from that pie. That pie is going to get so big. Like it's going to be an absolute five-star buffet, and everybody else is going to be on food stamps. That's a sort of situation that I think we're actually going towards. And so, yes, if you want to enforce UBI, if you want to have a more equitable world, you're going to have to it's reverse Robin Hood right now. You're going to have to actually do, real Robin Hood where it's take from the rich and give to the poor. And the rich in this case are not going to be real estate. It's going to be exclusively AI. And this is going to take a long time to play out, right? I mean, political change, legislative change, like, it takes a long time. We know DC is the slowest moving body in this
Mhm.
space, okay? The tech companies are going to move way faster, especially now we have the bill, Trump's big tax bill, big provision in that. For 5 years until 2030, states cannot set regulations on AI.
Right.
So the red tape is removed for these companies. They're already growing at breakneck speed. They're already the hottest companies in the world, and now they have no red tape for 5 years.
Yeah.
With
It
plus,
kind of explains why Zuck is willing to pay $100 million up front for cutting edge or leading AI programmers, right?
there's a
That's a
reason they
drop in
all
the
want,
bucket.
yeah, that, and then also the reason they all lined up to kiss the ring, right?
Yeah.
For Trump's inauguration and everything. I mean, look, it's paying off. Kiss the ring, and guess what? I'll give you guys no regulations for 5 years. That do you think they're going to make? I mean, they all committed money to that Trump inauguration fund or whatever. I don't know how much they
Mhm.
committed. Let's just say Meta put in 100 million. Think they're going to make more than 100 million in the next 5 years without regulations?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. The ROI on that stuff is absolutely absurd. So again, I just think that um, it has massive implications for the economy, massive implications for the market. But if I'm a person right now that's just watching this video or interested in this stuff, the only real solution that I actually see is you just got to invest in AI stocks. Like really, that's the one I think foolproof solution here because they're going to be such wealth aggregators that they're going to be the only stocks that really work for a long
Right.
time. Not just the past 2 years, not just the next year, but probably for the next several years going into the 2030s. And so you got to be invested with them or you are going to get left behind.
100%. Yeah. Now, speaking of those, the donors to the Trump campaign, the biggest donor, Musk, there is that current feud right now. It seems like on the
Yeah.
face it's about debt. What's your take on that? How do you feel about that? The Musk Trump beef.
Oh my God. What is there? There's a lot of thoughts to share. I mean, everyone saw it coming, of course. Round one, and then they rang the bell, and now they're back at it with round two. I think that feud is really interesting in the
Mm,
context of what we were just talking about, AI driven jobs displacement, because the big thing is debt, right? It's the debt ceiling. Politicians like to kick the can down the road. Musk is saying we got to stop kicking the can down the road or else our interest payments are going to be more than we can handle. Okay. I think if you throw in the AI jobs apocalypse wild card into the mix, Musk's argument becomes a lot more potent. Because, again, who is going to fund UBI? Where is that money going to come from? Where is that revenue going to come from? Who is going to fund the wealth redistribution efforts that are going to be necessary in a world of 20% structural unemployment?
right.
like, it's probably going to be the debt markets. We don't have we're not raising the revenue to do that. We're not a country that raises taxes by, absurd amounts just to fund things like that. No, it's probably going to have to, you're probably going to tap the debt markets. You're probably going to have to issue more treasuries. And so the more you tap those, then the 10-year treasury yield is going to go up. And then interest rates across the economy, real-time market rates are going to go up. Everyone's talking about, oh, the Fed controls rates. The Fed doesn't control anything. The Fed is it's a figurehead, right? They don't really control. The bond market controls things. Your mortgage rate's not based on what the Fed does. Your mortgage rate's based on the 10-year treasury yield, which is the bond market. Like, yeah, that can mirror what the Fed's doing, but if
Right.
the Fed is acting irresponsibly, or if the government's acting irresponsibly, or if they need to issue more debt, then the Fed can cut rates all they want. The 10-year treasury yield's going to go up. Your mortgage rate's going to go up. Your auto financing rate's going to go up. Your credit card rates are going to go up. So forget the Fed. It's about the bond market. And if the bond market senses that the U.S. economy needs to issue, or the U.S. government needs to issue a lot more debt to fund massive wealth redistribution efforts, then that's going to have a hugely negative impact on the economy, because it's going to result in structurally higher interest rates, market interest rates, the rates that actually matter. So from that perspective, you throw that wild card into the Musk-Trump feud, all of a sudden Musk's argument makes a lot of sense. Like, we can't keep kicking the can down the road because eventually someone's got to pay the piper. And I think AI is going to force us to pay the piper. And so I'd rather pay the piper earlier than later, because if you pay him later, the fine's going to be a lot bigger. It's kind of like if you messed up on your taxes one year, the longer it waits, every year the IRS charges you interest on that, and then the bill
Right.
just gets bigger, exponentially larger every single year. So if you owe, $1,000 in year one, if you don't pay it till year 10, now it's all of a sudden at $5,000 to $6,000. That's kind of what I think is happening here. If we pay it now, I think we can get away with it. But you have to pay it in 10 years. That's where you get not just structurally higher unemployment from the AI jobs apocalypse, but also simultaneously structurally higher rates that cause the economy to essentially break. Because one of the things about high unemployment is you should get the benefit of lower rates, right? Because high unemployment means weak economy, means Fed needs to cut. Okay, that's great. Market rates come down. Bond markets understand that. But if you're in a situation where that high unemployment is going to also result in massive debt issuance from the government, then you could get structurally higher rates as well. And that could be a bad outcome for the economy and for markets. But again, this is 10, 15 years down the road stuff. This is not going to be solved right now. That's been abundantly clear. And I think that's why Musk is throwing his hands in the air and throwing a fit to no avail, because he realizes that he thought, this was going to be an administration that kind of addressed this problem now, paid the piper now. They're not. They're kicking it down the road
Yeah.
just like every other politician. And so this is an issue that we're going to resolve in 10 to 15 years. And that's when it's going to be very problematic. But in the meantime, we're going to be on the sugar high, this AI sugar high, this deregulation sugar high. That's going to send stocks a lot higher and going to keep the economy strong. Just eventually you got to pay the price for it.
100%. Now, just to play a devil's advocate, I know we've gotten the big beautiful bill that has tax cuts across the board for the ultra wealthy. Wouldn't that, in theory, be a harder kick of the can? I think these are historically the lowest tax rates America's ever had. Is that right?
Um, I mean, on the ultra wealthy, I think, right? Like, the tax rates for the ultra wealthy were exceptionally high coming out of World War II, and have
Right.
been falling ever since. And I don't know if there's, I mean, there's some good things about that, and then there's some bad things about that. I don't think that higher taxes are the way that we want to start funding things. There's a reason the American economy turned into what it is.
Hmm.
I think it's because of technology. And I think the technological growth in America is largely a byproduct of the economic system that we set up, that tax we didn't put a tax on innovation. We didn't put a tax on, if you work
Right.
really hard, you can do great things and you can keep a lot of your money. Like, we incentivize people to innovate and to create, and they did. Right? Bill Gates did it here. Steve Jobs did it here. Elon Musk did it here. Everybody does it here. Jensen Huang does it here. Right? Like, everybody does it here. And so I don't think we want to change the system that allows that innovation too much. Change it a little, but not
Mm,
too much. So when I say pay the piper, I don't think pay the piper means fundamentally restructuring tax rates. I think it means talking about other things.
gotcha. And then, speaking on Elon, how much of his ire right now is based on the provisions in the new bill about cutting a lot of the energy bonuses that kind of fund a lot of Tesla's growth at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get into Elon's head. I don't really know how much of it
Right.
is incorporated there. I honestly, if I had to put a gun in my head and take a guess, I would say not much because I think Elon's thrown in the towel on the electric vehicle business. I have. I think EVs are kind of like they were this hype trend and then they faded. And I don't think they're really
Mm,
going to make much of a comeback. I'm not a huge believer in EVs as an investment proposition because I don't think the growth is going to be there. Elon wants autonomy, right? He wants
right.
autonomous driving. He wants Robotaxi. He wants Optimus, and he's pushing forward on that. He never tweets about the driving range of the Model 3 or, he doesn't tweet about that stuff. He tweets about the autonomous delivery of a car in Texas. He tweets about Optimus doing cool stuff. That's what he cares about. And that's what he should care about. That is the future growth unlock. The future growth unlock is not scaling the EV business to 30 million units. The future growth unlock is having the current units all have self-driving software that they're raking in, $5 grand a month or whatever on high margin 80% stuff. And, the Optimus robots sell that $20,000, $25,000 to every household in America. Like that's the massive growth unlock for Tesla. So he's focused on that. I don't think he's focused on the EV stuff. I think that might be kind of a, I don't know. I think it's a mainstream media narrative that I don't think
Mm,
Elon really cares too much about. But he does want a regulatory backdrop that will be conducive to allowing things like autonomous vehicles and humanoid robots to proliferate rapidly across the economy. He wants a regulatory backdrop that's friendly to that. And so far, I think he's gotten that. So I really do think he may be standing on principle of the debt thing. I don't know if he's
right.
really kind of like saying that, but then really he's pissed about the EV stuff. Because if I'm him, I don't really care about the EV stuff. Like I know Tesla's future value and current valuation is not based on this idea that they're going to sell so many more electric vehicles.
Then
No,
he
it's
like
based on the
looking at the
idea that
regulation.
Robotaxi becomes a massive thing and that Optimus scales rapidly. And so far, he's getting what he wants in terms of a regulatory backdrop for that stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'd love to dive into robotaxis. I know we talked about them last week. Last week you mentioned three verticals, three specific companies that you would kind of dive into.
Right.
Um, Now, could you give us like a hypothetical, Luke indice on robotaxis? Like, what if you had to build a model portfolio on robotaxis? What would you do?
So I'm gonna go Google first and foremost. Waymo's the
Okay.
leader.
Yeah.
They're the safety leader. They have the most miles driven. They have the most experience. They're delivering over 250,000 rides per week.
Yeah.
And that was a couple months ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're up over 350,000 rides per week now, over a million a month. Um, and the data on them is fabulous. Like they've done
Mm,
all these miles, and their accident rate is super, super low, like an order of magnitude lower than a human-driven accident rate. They never have any accident or injury-related incidents, or very rarely do they. Every once in a while, the car will get confused, but that's totally fine. The safety on them is unmatched, and so because of that, they have the trust of the regulators. They have trust of consumers. People like the experience. And so I think that the trust leader, the safety leader, I think they dominate the robo taxi, the autonomous ride sharing portion of this market. I think they're going to be a go-to safety, trusted kind of consumer trust leader. Number two would be Uber, because I think Waymo has been partnering with Uber a bunch to service these rides. Waymo has tried to launch alone in some cities. It is my understanding that where they have launched alone, they've had less success than where they've launched with Uber, because when you launch with Uber, you plug into the ride share network that's already established, the biggest, most established rideshare network in that region. And there's a lot of value in that because these autonomous cars, they cost a lot of money to make. And if you put in a lot of money to making something and you put it out into the world and you want to monetize it, you want to monetize it 24/7. You don't want it to
right.
sit idly by. You're essentially losing money if it's just sitting idly by. If Waymo launches in a city alone, it risks having a lot of its high value assets sit idly by. If they launch in a city with Uber, they are going to be always monetizing monetize, always use. They're going to be in constant return out of them. And so I think there's a lot of value in that rideshare network. And I think Waymo is going to continue to partner with Uber in a lot of their launches. Right now, they're kind of hedging bets, right? Like Waymo tried to launch in a few cities on its own. So then Uber went out and partnered with some other companies. They're partnering with Volkswagen to launch in LA, a robotaxi service pretty soon. So they're kind of hedging their bets against each other. But I think ultimately those are just hedges, and the two marry one another in the robotaxi race. And so Uber becomes a great play there as well. So you got Google, you got Uber. You got Tesla. I do believe that the robotaxi service is not going to be as large. Tesla's robotaxi service is not going to be as large as Waymo, but they are the cost leader, right? Elon has done a lot to bring down the manufacturing costs of Tesla cars. He's removed LiDAR from the equation. I don't think that's a super smart decision, but it is a cost-effective decision. And so he's done a lot of things to allow Tesla to deliver autonomous rides at the lowest cost per mile. And so I think it's scale that's going to matter to some people, right? Like when you're deciding whether to Uber or Lyft somewhere, every once in a while you choose Lyft over Uber because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Well, I think the same thing can be true in 10 years. You know, you're looking, Waymo is going to be the standard. It's your Uber. I mean, I want a Waymo somewhere. But then I pull up the Robotaxi and I'm like, you know what? It's 15% cheaper. Maybe I'll do the Robotaxi this time. So I think that Robotaxi does have Tesla's Robotaxi division does have a solid place as the second fiddle in the market. Not to mention, I think that Tesla can make a bunch of money on its own passenger cars, right? They sell these cars to people that have self-driving software. No one else is really doing that right now. They're the only ones doing that. So they do that. They make, 40 grand on the car at a 20% margin, so not that great. But then they make, $5 grand per month, let's say, on an 80%, 90% gross margin. Oh, that's value. That's high value. So I think they can win that market. I think there's a lot of value upside for them. I'd put them in an autonomous vehicle index, if you will. Number 4, we're going to go across the ocean to Baidu, because they're dominating the China game. The thing about China is that it's just different, right? Like the transportation network is different. The streets are a little bit different. The driving rules are a little bit different. Baidu knows that game. Nobody else knows it that well. Uber kind of knows it, not really. But Baidu really, really knows it. And China's going to make it impossible for Tesla to scale over there. China's going to make it impossible for Waymo to scale over there. They're gonna root for the homeboy and the hometown hero. And so Baidu's got the Apollo Go program. They're operating at a similar scale as Waymo in China, and I think they win. I think they win that race. That's the biggest car market in the world. You got over 1 billion people. The biggest autonomous vehicle potential is in that market as well. So I think Baidu is a really undervalued play on autonomous vehicles in China. Staying in China, you got the LiDAR provider named Hesai, ticker is HSAI. They are the market share leader when it comes to LiDAR. I think like over 70% of global robotaxi LiDAR market, they own it. They make really high quality LiDAR at a really low price point. I think in America, we're struggling to get LiDAR below $1,000 a sensor. I think Hesai's selling them for like 200 to 300. So they're smashing it on cost. The quality's good. Cost is a huge deterrent for incorporating LiDAR. So that's a big advantage for Hesai. That stock's been on fire. I think I'd stick with it. And then I'd round it off with Aurora. Coming back stateside, Aurora, self-driving trucks. Everybody else kind of forgot the truck game or abandoned it. Uber was doing stuff with autonomous freight. Waymo was trying stuff with autonomous freight. Tesla was thinking about, the autonomous. Remember their electric semi-truck or whatever? I don't even know what happened to it.
Tesla one.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to it. Everybody kind of abandoned the freight game except for Aurora on roads in Texas. So I think they win that game. I think they're kind of running in a field by themselves, and I think that stock does exceptionally well too. So that would be kind of like my starting blocks for an autonomous vehicle index, and then deeper down, can't really go into too much detail here on a public podcast. These are more picks for our paid subscribers, but deeper down below these companies, like they each have their own suppliers, right? Supplying critical parts and minerals and whatnot. So the supply chains where I think a lot of the money is actually going to be made, but at a headline level, I think those are the companies you want to watch.
Okay. I just had for curiosity's sake, Hasai, that that's an extreme markdown. Is it because China doesn't have to? I guess they don't have to import any rare metals. Would that be the main reason there, or like why is it so much lower than?
Yeah, no, this really just gets back to the whole reshoring of manufacturing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like, are we really able to do that? And a lot of people would argue no, because China spent 15 to 20 years investing in its infrastructure and people to become a hyper efficient manufacturing capital
right.
of the world. The US does not have that. We don't have I mean, I think China's kind of got like this like ant empire going on. You know, like a colony of ants, where they work just
Yeah,
so efficiently together. The tunnels are set up. They're just boom, 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 and that's how they're able to crank so much out, so much output. With such little cost, America doesn't have that, and will it ever have that is a really good question, because there are some fundamental differences. I'm not just talking about like rare
mm,
earths in China, or there's some supplies in China. Like, let's just net all that out. Let's just say
okay,
resources are abundant. Let's talk about the people. In China, you have a communist society where everyone's about the greater good, or a lot of people are about the greater good. They buy into that. America's the exact opposite. We can't buy into a single idea altogether, right? Like, there is not one single idea all 300 million plus people in America can agree on right now. We're
no
as
way.
divided as it gets. We're as independent as it gets. We love to fight each other more than shake hands. So I just don't think we have the people that are able to do what China is doing at an enormous national scale right now. So
Right.
that's why Hasai is able to just beat the crap out of all the US LiDAR suppliers, because they're plugged into that network. They're plugged into that scale. They're plugged into that national priority. And that's allowing them to pump out these high quality LiDARs at one fourth, one fifth the cost of what the US competitors are doing.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it's almost a culture issue. Yeah, America has that almost lone wolf hustle culture. Uh, it just, I guess it would not fly in terms of transitioning that market over here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, again, they're just, yeah. And there's lifestyle differences, and that's another reason why like the US doesn't want to get into a trade war with China, because a trade war would cause both countries pain. Once Americans feel pain, they'll, a lot of them will turn on the administration and say, this is wrong, we're going to force you out of office, and we're going to end the trade war. Whereas in China, a lot of the population, by choice or by not, would be forced to buy into it. And so, President Xi can think on a 10, 20, 50 year time horizon, whereas any president in the United States is forced to think on a 4 year or shorter time horizon.
Yeah, heavy on the or shorter, really.
Yeah.
So now let's stay on that transportation tech track, that proverbial track, if you will. One of your favorite stocks, Joby, popped recently. That
Hmm.
was after one of the first commercial successful flights they did in Dubai. So I want you to touch base on Joby, see how it's doing, see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think eVTOLs are electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft are a really underrated investment theme. Joby and Archer are the two big dogs there. I think both stocks are going to soar over the next 12 months. They've been hot recently. I think they're going to stay hot, get even hotter over the next 12 months. Joby, like you said, just completed its first test eVTOL flight in Dubai. So what both of these companies are doing is US regulations with the FAA are a bit stricter than they are overseas. So while they're still working with the FAA to get progress, or to get to a point where they can fly commercially, they can fly people commercially in the United States. Simultaneous to that, they're just jumping overseas and already starting to do it. So they're both going to the
Right.
United Arab Emirates. They're both going to Dubai, and that's where they're launching their operations. Archer has, I believe, turned a helicopter pad. Uh, is it at the Qatari airport? It's either in Qatar or Dubai, and one of the airport. I think it's the Qatari airport. They transformed a helipad there into a vertiport for these eVTOL aircrafts.
Hmm.
They're going to start commercial operations, they say, in late 2025. Joby just completed its first test flight in Dubai. They're going to start commercial operations with people in 2026. And then I think in 2026, both companies are going to win FAA approval to start doing flights, commercial flights, flying people in America. And so I think over the next 12 months, you have a pretty clear roadmap for these companies to go from science labs to real world, not just prototypes, but commercial operations, not scaled operations, small, but commercial operations. And that's a huge jumping point for something like eVTOLs, which is brand new. Right? Like nobody's seen these in the world before. And so as we go from nobody's seen them to now they're in the world, that's a huge launching point for the stocks, I think. That attracts capital into the stocks. People start to believe in it. People start to see the upside of it. Seeing is believing, right? And so
Right.
I think that you're going to see these stocks do exceptionally well over the next 12 months. And then that could even extend into 27 and 28, because in 2028, Archer signed a deal with the Olympic Committee to provide flights in LA for the 2028 Olympics for VIPs and for athletes going from venue to venue. Because if you live in LA or been to LA, you know the traffic is impossible in that city. Add the Olympics, and it becomes, I don't even know what it becomes, but horrendous. So, um, that I think is a huge value add for eVTOLs in that sort of situation, and that'll allow Archer to prove out the value of eVTOLs. Because I think a lot of people doubt, like, what the heck do we need these for? Well, there are a lot of cities with massive congestion issues, and if we keep getting more and more people, we're gonna have more and more congestion issues, and so we need to find ways to have more efficient and simultaneously cost-effective mid-haul transport. I want to get from the office to close to my home. I want to go from San Diego to LA. I want to go from New York to Philadelphia. Like these flights, there's demand for them. And that's where eVTOLs are going to thrive. So I think we're in the first or second inning of what could be a very large and long growth runway for these stocks. Now, there's a lot of players in the space. The only two I like are Joby and Archer. That's where I would put my money.
100%. So I'd love to spitball, real world scenarios. We got a commercial test flight in Dubai, but Dubai is probably the most fantastical place on the planet right now. You got the tallest building in the world. You got man-made islands. You have $1 million supercars just driving everywhere, right? So a flying car, it almost makes sense to be in Dubai. But say I am just a regular person in LA, what is a price for a commercial, flying car flight from here to there that makes sense for the market for a consumer? Or that makes sense for Joby as a company. What will we be looking at in
So
terms of
these
cost?
companies are trying to, like, their goal is to provide mid-haul transportation that will be quicker and cheaper than existing formats. So think of an Uber ride. Like if
Right.
you, let's say you fly into LAX and you live in Orange County or Laguna Beach or something like that, that's going to be a very, let's say it's rush hour. That's going to be a very long and expensive Uber trip.
Hmm.
Very long and very expensive, like over $100, maybe over an hour. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be terrible. They aim to provide, you fly into LAX. There's a vertiport at LAX and there's a
Right.
vertiport in Orange County, maybe 5 minutes from your house in Laguna or wherever you are, right? You fly into LAX, you walk over to the vertiport, you hop into an eVTOL, and you fly to the vertiport in Orange County. It'll take you 10 minutes. It'll cost you $20, $30, much cheaper than an Uber. And then you get off at the OC vertiport, and then you take an Uber or maybe a Waymo to your house in Laguna Beach or wherever it is. That's the model for Los Angeles. Do that in any city. Do that. You
Right.
fly into LaGuardia, you fly into San Diego International, you fly into Phoenix Sky Harbor, and there's a vertiport there, multiple vertiports there. And there are multiple vertiports throughout the city in different neighborhoods. So you hop into the vertiport, hop into an eVTOL, you take the vertiport to your local municipality, whether that's, whatever suburb you live in, and then you hop into an Uber from there. The idea being that traffic doesn't happen within suburbs, traffic happens between suburbs.
Correct.
On these interstates, on these freeways. That's what it's bypassing. And so I think that there's a very viable model there for people transportation as well as for goods transportation. You can follow a similar route for the transportation of Amazon packages or FedEx packages or different things like that so that your package doesn't arrive late, because a lot of times those trucks get stuck in traffic too in busy
Hmm.
cities. So I think there's a huge market for it, and I think that the value add of it will get proved out in the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the price, I'm hopping in a Joby.
Their,
$20,
their
thirty
their
bucks.
goal is to, I just made those numbers up off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but their goal is definitely to provide transportation of such of that style at a cheaper price than existing formats, than an
Right.
existing Uber ride. So if an Uber ride is costing you X, this will cost you X times 0.8, right?
Right.
Something like that. That is their goal. And that's the only way the model works. The model is not going to work if it's X times 2. No one's going to pay. I mean, maybe some rich folks will pay,
Of course.
but most people will not pay double to get in a chopper and save, 30 minutes. The premium there is not going to be, it has to be either very, very small or it has to be a discount. And I think they are going to be successful at getting it to a discount. And that's when the market really blows up.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, but it's essentially a convenience fee at that point. I
Yeah,
if it's a
so if you do have, let's say it's 1.2 times X, yeah, you have a 20% convenience fee. People will pay that. Some people
of
will pay
course, yeah.
that. But if you want to get to the massive scale that they want to get to, which is where you get Joby stock and Archer stock becoming 10x investments, then you have to get to 0.8x. You have to get
Mhm.
to a discount, not a fee. But if you get to the discount, then you get 10x on Joby and Archer. If you don't get to the discount, then those stocks maybe at most are a double from here.
Gotcha. Okay.
And like I
Still
said,
exciting. Yeah,
I think they can get to the discount. I think they can get to that discount level.
definitely. And yeah, still excited. I mean, flying cars. That's amazing. The Jetsons, right?
There you go. Exactly.
Cool. And now I want to get into probably my favorite headline so far. Google is all in on nuclear fusion. They reached out to a company which is backed by Bill Gates, I believe, about powering their data centers with nuclear fusion in the future. I know you're bullish on nuclear in general, specifically fusion. How do you feel about that, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, it's great news. You're seeing big tech companies. I mean, they're all in with nuclear energy already. They're all tapping nuclear fission energy. So just kind of as a, 400-foot view here, two types of nuclear energy. There's fission
Mhm.
and fusion. Fission is breaking apart. Fusion is bringing together atoms, okay? Fission, the breaking apart is when you get the boom boom and when you get the radioactive waste and the bad stuff. Like there's bad byproducts or potential hazards
Right.
of fission. But fission's a lot easier to do than fusion, so that's what we chose to do. That's how we made the nuclear bomb. That's how we've made nuclear reactors. Even all these SMRs, the new tech in there, it's still all fission. Fusion's the next evolution. Fusion is the bringing together of atoms. That's what powers the sun. Okay, the sun and pretty much every star out there that we know of is powered by nuclear fusion, which is the fusing together of atoms. Now, that requires insanely intense conditions to do. Like you need super hot, like one of the big things, you need super, super, super hot temperatures. Just think about the sun. We feel it from here on Earth. Imagine how hot it is right there at this core where the fusion's happening. Well, that's what we need to replicate here on Earth in order to make that happen. And so a big problem with fusion has been uh, the amount of energy required to create a fusion reaction has consistently exceeded the amount of energy outputted of a fusion reaction. So we're able to do it, but it just requires such insane conditions that we have to put in so much energy, so much effort that the energy we get out is actually less than the energy we put into the experiment. So that's been a huge holdup of fusion. But people continue to try it because Well, because it's the holy grail of energy production, right?
Right.
It's essentially limitless energy. It provides so much energy per capita coming out that you could power the whole world many times over with it. Again, it's what powers the sun, and the inputs for it, the actual raw materials for it, are abundant and everywhere on Earth. So, it is the limitless, the holy grail of energy, limitless energy, unlimited energy. That is what fusion is, or fusion could unlock. We have seen a few experiments in the last 2 to 3 years that did post what's called the net energy gain, which means they were able to create a fusion experiment where the energy output exceeded the energy input. That is a recent breakthrough. Last 2 or 3 years, there's been a few experiments that have done that, but they were on a very, very small scale.
Mhm.
Nonetheless, that is important because it does show, okay, it's possible to create energy out of this, to have a net energy gain. So now we just need to figure out how to scale it. So now we're in the scaling part. That's really important. We're in the scaling part. Now we have these startups that are coming in that are trying to figure out that scaling equation, whether it's Hyliion, whether it's Commonwealth, the one that Google just signed with. So they're coming in, they're trying to figure it out. They're getting a lot of funding, and now they're getting big tech support. So Microsoft's with Hyliion, Google's with Commonwealth, Amazon's invested in the space too. And so you got big tech support. You have, we're past the kind of experimentation phase and more in the scaling phase now. You have a lot of funding. And then I think the wild card here is AI. That
Right.
AI theoretically should be able to accelerate the process of getting to nuclear fusion because it can accelerate some of like the physics experimentations and simulations that are necessary to get us to a nuclear fusion reality. So if we can use AI to accelerate a lot of the testing and experimentation of this around the scaling equations, and then we add all this money involved, and then we add all these big tech players involved, all of a sudden, I think a pathway is being created for nuclear fusion energy to become a widespread viable reality by the early 2030s. And that is, talk about the Commonwealth deal with Google. They agreed to start buying nuclear fusion power from Commonwealth in the early 2030s. So both Commonwealth and Google believe that nuclear fusion power will be something Google can use to power its data centers by the early 2030s. So me saying there's a pathway to nuclear fusion becoming a reality by the early 2030s is not an isolated viewpoint. It is shared by Google. Now, Microsoft's deal, I think, has them buying nuclear fusion energy in the late 2020s, so they're even more aggressive on their timeline. Point being, it's coming. Nuclear fusion is coming. And that's going to change everything. It's going to create a world of abundant energy, limitless energy. I think nat gas becomes a thing of the past. I think solar and wind, we've talked about it, become a thing of the past. I've never, in the past several years, not liked those stocks because I think they're getting obsoleted by nuclear. And fusion will entirely obsolete almost every other energy source out there. Not overnight, but it will over a long enough time horizon. So I think the implications are the energy sector becomes one dimensional. Nuclear fusion, and then everything else kind of gets obsoleted over the 10 to 15 years after fusion becomes a reality. Let's call it 2030. Then by 2040, 2045, I think the only energy we have on Earth is fusion.
Right. Yeah. It has to be. It's almost synergistic. AI and nuclear. It's necessary at this point because of the amount of strain that all of the AI data centers we have currently are causing on our energy system. So we almost need it at this point, right? Because
Yeah, so we
AI is
got
only going to
we
go up.
got fission. Fission is the first chapter, and fusion is the second chapter.
Yeah.
So right now, all these nuclear or all these AI data centers are tapping fission power, nuclear fission power, and that's where you're seeing stocks like Cameco and stocks like BWXT and stocks like Oklo really just absolutely soar to the moon. And I think they're going to
Right.
continue to do very well because I think again, fusion is 5 years away from being a small scale reality, probably 10 to 15 years away from being a widespread reality. So in those 5, 10, 15 years, we're going to still need power before the fusion shows up. I think a lot of that power is going to be fission based power, and then we transition to fusion. So the first wave, I think investing in nuclear, it's like, I think that's got a 20-year kind of time horizon on it.
Oh,
I
okay.
think the first 5 to 10 years, next 5 to 10 years are going to be all about investing in fission. And then the 5 to 10 years after that are going to be about investing in fusion. Luckily for us as investors, there isn't really any public option for fusion right now. All the fusion startups are private still, for the most
Mhm.
part. Any of the good ones are private still. So we don't even have the option to invest in fusion if we wanted to as regular retail investors. So fission now. And then once these fusion startups start to IPO, then pay attention to them, look for opportunities there. But they're not even IPOing yet. So, and I think they're still several years away from doing so.
Right.
So stick with the fission stuff for now. Keep an eye out for the fusion stuff. But when it IPOs, then let's get involved.
Yeah, it's exciting times. Yeah, I heard even in New York, I think was it the governor reopening more factories for nuclear just to power New York itself. So it's an exciting time in terms of
Right.
the way we power ourselves.
Yep. Exactly right, my man. Exactly right.
Cool. And then lastly, on the subject of technology, I want to talk about TPUs. You've been writing about these chips a lot lately. Um, can you dive into that? Maybe even dive into the differences between GPUs, CPUs, and TPUs and why you're excited or bullish on them.
Right. So, there are a lot of processing units out there, PUs, right? There's the
Mhm.
CPU, the GPU, the TPU, the VPU. There's just a lot of them out there. The choice processing unit, the go-to one, the preferred processing unit for AI models up to this point has been GPUs, graphics processing units, which is what NVIDIA specializes in. And that's why NVIDIA stock has been the biggest darling of the AI stock boom, because as companies have raced to build and train these massive AI models, they have raced to buy GPUs, and NVIDIA demand has absolutely soared, and NVIDIA stock has absolutely soared. Cool story. But the AI model making market, if you will, is undergoing a big shift from training to inferencing. I think we've already talked about this a little bit in
Yeah,
these podcasts. Um, Before, it was all about making this massive model, training this massive model that knew everything, this omniscient model that knew everything and simply was regurgitating stuff when you asked it. Now it's about making an omnipotent model, not an omniscient one, but an omnipotent model. One that doesn't necessarily know everything beforehand, but which has the inferencing skills, the reasoning skills to find the right answer when asked a question. So
that's
we're going from
colloquially that's called AGI, autonomous
So
generalized intelligence.
AGI inferencing is a step towards AGI. Yeah.
Right.
So you're not going to get AGI based on training alone. You need inferencing. So AGI is what is a it would be a byproduct of inferencing done well at scale for a long enough time. And
Gotcha.
we're getting into the inferencing game now. So that's where the model market model making market, sorry, three M's in a row there, kind of a tongue twister. Model making market is shifting from training omniscient models to inferencing omnipotent models. And that requires a different type of chip. So training is always going to be important in the process. You always have to pre-train a model. So GPUs are always going to be critical. But when you get to the inferencing game, and as inferencing becomes more and more important to the overall tech stack of an AI model, then you're going to start to see these companies shift from GPUs to other processing units that are better at inferencing. One of those is TPUs. So Google purpose-built tensor processing units, TPUs, for AI inferencing. They're literally exclusively made for AI models. That's pretty interesting because GPUs, if you remember, the graphics processing unit, they were
Right.
gaming chips. They were for PC gamers 10, 15 years ago. They were not made for AI. They just happen to be good for AI. So TPUs are actually made for AI inferencing, AI at the edge. They're really good at that for a lot of technical reasons, which we don't have to get into. But because of that, I think that TPUs are going to win more and more market share of the chips market in the next few years as the AI model making market shifts from training to inferencing. And indeed, we're already seeing the tip of the spear do this. Who is the tip of the spear of the AI boom? OpenAI, right? They're the company that made ChatGPT. They're the company that started this whole AI boom, this whole AI revolution in late 2022, November 2022, with the launch of ChatGPT. They remain at the epicenter. They're partnering with the White House. They have that $500 billion Stargate project. They're often in the Middle East doing big projects. They're building sovereign AI with all these countries. So they are the big kahuna. They're the tip of the spear. What are they doing? The information just reported, I think over the weekend, that OpenAI is shifting from NVIDIA GPUs to Google TPUs. That's big. This is the first time that ChatGPT is going to be powered by TPUs.
Hmm.
That's the tip of the spear. Follow the tip of the spear. The rest of the market is going to follow OpenAI's move. There's going to be a shift from GPUs to TPUs. Does that mean NVIDIA stock is doomed? No. I still love NVIDIA stock because, like I said, training is always going to be an essential part of the stack. GPUs are always going to be an essential part of the AI infrastructure. But does it mean NVIDIA stock is going to forever dominate the chips market? No. In fact, it means the opposite. It means now other entrants are going to have room to grow market share in the XPU game, or extra processing units, the ones beyond GPUs and CPUs. TPUs is one of them. As we get into robots and self-driving cars, VPUs, vision processing units. Look at a name like Ambarella. That's a company that makes VPUs that could do really well as we get into this physical AI stuff. So yeah, I just think the whole chips market goes from one dimensional to multi-dimensional. And it doesn't mean that first dimension, GPUs and NVIDIA, is doomed. It just means now there's more dimensions, and that now there's more investment opportunities for folks like us.
Gotcha. It is really fascinating. I still remember looking at gaming magazines, even just like science technology magazines 10 years ago, and you see the ads for NVIDIA GeForce GPUs, and
Right.
now they're almost 4 trillion, sorry, $4 trillion market cap. That is so nuts. But like regarding that market cap, that who's to say NVIDIA won't get into the TPU game, or any kind of PU game.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of coughed there because I was laughing. I find it hilarious that this gaming company,
Right.
it was literally like, I remember looking at it in like 2015, 2014, even earlier, and it's like the consensus on Wall Street was it was like it was a nerd stock.
Nerd
Right,
stock.
like all the
AMD.
nerds knew about it. The gaming nerds, they knew about AMD and Nvidia, and like they were just this niche little corner of the market. No one really cared all that much about them.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, a new gaming console's coming out. Oh, great for them. Whoop-de-doo,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And now here they are, the backbone of the entire global economy. Like that is a wild transformation. But I think again, it also opens the door for like somebody to purpose build AI chips that are a little bit different, that are a little bit better, and may take some market share. But to your point, yeah, Nvidia is not going to sit down and die. Jensen Huang
Yeah.
is I mean, he's a badass. Excuse my language. He's a total badass. He's a complete visionary. He's really smart. He's got a tattoo of the company on his shoulder. Like, I mean, this guy he's a
I would
total,
too.
where's a leather jacket? I mean, this guy, he's gonna kick butt and take names, So I don't think they're gonna lay down and die. They're gonna innovate. They're gonna iterate. They're all in on physical AI. That's his thing, right? They're all in on
Yeah.
physical AI. And don't forget, Nvidia's got a software stack, right? CUDA, that's a software stack on top of their GPUs, and that is, some would argue, a bigger moat even than their chips themselves. So they're fine. Nvidia stock is fine. It's a great pick. It's going to continue to do well. What I'm saying here is just now there's room for more winners alongside them. The amount of spending on Nvidia GPUs is not going to go down. You're just going to
Mm.
get more and more spending on all sorts of different chips. And it's a rising tide lifts all boats type situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, man. It's an awesome story. And Nvidia is still going to surprise us, I'm sure. They've had some of the biggest growth of any stock in the past year. I know a lot of it was due to the Liberation Day dips, but still, man, 20%, 30% in a company like Nvidia in like 1 year, it almost does, it defies reason, right?
Back to the beginning topic of this call: wealth aggregation, wealth concentration
Yep.
among artificial intelligence firms. Yes, you are now seeing AI companies with market caps bigger than the GDPs of most countries.
Most countries,
And
yeah.
we are in AI is 3 years old, 2.5 years old. It's not even three. If you really want to consider its birth date, November 2022, not even three. And companies in the space are already commanding market caps bigger than the GDP of countries that are hundreds of years old. Let that sink in. Where will we be in 10 years when AI is 13, when it's entering its teenage years? Okay. What then? There's going to be so much wealth aggregation, so much wealth concentration among AI companies like Nvidia that if you didn't invest in them, you will get left behind. Because we're not just printing money magically. No, money is shifting. It's going from old school stuff to AI, and it's going to continue to do that for the next several years. So you got to invest again, AI with AI, all in with artificial intelligence. I just want to keep pounding on that because here, I didn't even mean to talk about it. Here we are
Yeah,
an hour into the podcast, but it came up because it's going to keep coming up. It is the theme to dominate all themes for the next several years.
definitely. I just had to look it up to satisfy my own curiosity. There are only four countries with a GDP higher than Nvidia's market cap. Four out of every country in the world. That's nuts. That's nuts.
And it was a little gaming nerd company 10 years ago, man.
Yeah, who would have thought, man? Who would have thought? All right.
Incredible story. All right, let's hop into some
Yeah.
stocks, shall we?
Yeah, let's hop into the stocks. First up, we have Robinhood.
Yeah, I pulled up the chart for you here. Robinhood's been red hot. Getting into cryptos, getting into the European Union with cryptos as well. I love this company, man. I think that they're democratizing investing. They're getting into credit cards and financial stuff like that. I love fintech disruptors. I think the banking
Mhm.
industry is so lame. I mean, I hate Wells Fargo. I was a Wells Fargo customer forever. I still am. I hate Bank of America. I hate Chase. I hate JP Morgan. I hate the old guard. They've done nothing for the younger generation. So, you know what I say? I say screw them. Let's go with these new boys. Let's go with these new guys. New energy, new blood. They're actually giving me services that I like. I want to invest in retail stocks, no commission, right in an app. I want to invest in cryptos without commissions. I want all that stuff, okay? They're giving it to me. They are giving it to me. I want Robinhood. I want SoFi. I want Coinbase. These stocks have been red hot. I think they're going to stay red hot. I think as stable coins become bigger, I think Robinhood has an opportunity there. As tokenization becomes bigger, I think Robinhood has an opportunity there. The stock is super hot right now. I wouldn't necessarily chase it up here at $90, but hey, if this comes in 5-10% down to its moving averages, let's put moving averages on the chart right now. 50s, I mean, whoa. I didn't know it was that far detached, actually. We own this one in our model portfolio for our subscribers. We've owned it for a while. Big. I didn't know that the 50-day was down, or the 200-day was down at 45, and we're up at 90. So we're at 100%. We're double the 200-day. Yeah, that's too hot. That's too hot. It's going to come down. But when it does come down, maybe it finds support, maybe around that $70 level right there. I think the 50-day will catch up to it. Then that's probably a dip buying opportunity, and it rips back up to 100, 120, 140, 150, and it keeps on going. So I like this one on a dip. That's how I view Robinhood, as well as SoFi and Coinbase. I think those are my like trio of fintech disruptors that I think are going to be big time in the next 2 to 3 years.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that tokenization story they got. I know it's a option only available in Europe, how you're essentially able to use the blockchain as investments in companies in America. That's really cool. It's almost immediate transactions, and you're able to just buy in as a regular consumer, right?
Right. Yep. Pretty awesome. Pretty cool
Yeah.
stuff.
All right. Next up, we got AeroVironment.
Let's pull it up. AVAV. We talked about defense and AI last week, and I think that's a big space. It's continued big space. This one had just blockbuster earnings. That's when the stock jumped from what was it, 190 all the way up to 290. So I mean, added $100 in like 2 days. Now it's pulling back a little bit because the RSI got to darn near 90, 88.86, 89.56 actually. So just below 90. You see an RSI at 90, yeah, it's going to have a little bit of a retreat, a little bit of a breather. Okay, great. Let it have a breather. I think it's going to have some technical support, maybe around 250 or this previous high right around here. What is that? 235. So I think in that 235 to 250 range, you probably get some technical support on AVAV. I'd be a buyer on the dip. I love the defense AI story. I think defense AI is becoming more than just a big investment theme. I think it's a national priority. It's a strategic national security issue for companies all
Yeah.
or countries all across the world. And AeroVironment is smack dab in the middle of that with some really good AI offerings. So I like the defense story. I like defense stocks that have an AI angle. AeroVironment is that. I think the stock can continue to do well. Wouldn't chase it here. Like I said, RSI 90 coming back in. Usually you see an RSI at 90. It's got to come at least below 70 and then stabilize and then U-turn. So I think that's why the stock goes at 235, 250, and then you can buy the dip around there.
Gotcha. I think we'd like to see maybe an AI defense basket in the future. That might be a cool little
Yeah,
offering there, Luke.
let's do that. Let's do
Uh,
it next week.
yeah, yeah. We'll definitely have a Palantir in there, right?
Yeah, Palantir is definitely in there.
All right. And then next up we got Joby. Just talked about that
There you
today.
go. Just talked about Joby. Not much more to say here. I think the stock is really, really hot. Not hot enough, though, to where I wouldn't actually be a buyer here. I think that this is a stock you could buy here and now on this idea that, again, we're going to get commercial operations launch of both its aircraft and Archer's aircraft in the next probably 6 to 9 months. And that will be a huge catalyst, which send these stocks meaningfully higher. So I like this one both in the next 6 to 9 months as well as here and now. RSI of 60, not that overbought. It's having a retreat already. I think this is one you can it looks buyable here. It looks pretty buyable here.
Awesome. I'm excited about Joby personally. I hate traffic.
You and me both, man. You and me both. Kids were supposed to teach me patience, and they have, but I still do not have patience when it comes to traffic.
Yeah, not at all. Next up we got Sezzle.
Oh yeah, this one is okay. So this is another fintech disruptor. It's not in the same wheelhouse as like a Robinhood and Coinbase and SoFi, but it is in that kind of BNPL space a little bit. This stock's been, I mean, this has been on a scorcher. It literally was overbought for what months and became overbought May at an RSI of 80, and then it stayed overbought until just today at 66. So all of May and all of June, 2 straight months, this stock was overbought. That speaks to the massive buying pressure in this name, but I also think it speaks to the amount of air that has to come out of the wheels when there is a technical reset. And I think we're getting a technical reset now. We're down 16 points on it today alone. 50 days all the way down to 100. I think this one can fall back to 100. I think you could have a big haircut in this name, and I think that's going to create a big dip buying opportunity. So I would look for this one. I think it's got a lot more pain left in the short term, maybe another 20%, 30% downside. But I think if we do get that massive air let out of the wheel here, I'd be a buyer on the dip of Sezzle. I like the BNPL space. I like the fintech disruption stuff. They're doing some cool things with AI. They're a great company in the AI application layer. Stock's just too hot. Let it come in, let it cool off. Stocks like this tend to have big cool off periods. So let it have a big cool off period and buy that dip. Like I said, 100 is a level I'd watch.
Gotcha. Yeah, look, I just had to do a little research. It looks like it's gone up almost 1,000% in a year. How much runway do you think it would have if it hits that 100 number?
So I mean, let's look at the model for it, right? So if we go into the numbers on this actual stock, so Sezzle is a $5.4 billion market cap. Enterprise value basically the same. It's just got a little bit of debt, a little bit of cash, kind of offsets each other. We're growing revenues at 60% this year, 25% the year after that. We're only at 400 million in revenues, 50% the year after that. You look at EPS, we're looking at massive growth from 3.26, 4.25, 4.60. And then these later estimates are a little bit messed up because there's fewer analysts that are looking at the stock at this point in time.
Right.
But if you're looking at $5 in 2027, you think that can continue to compound, maybe at 20% per year. I mean, this could be something that's at a 7, 8, 9, $10 EPS. Let's call it $10 EPS within the next 5 to 6 years. You put a 20x multiple on that, that's $200. stock like this probably deserves more of like a 35x multiple. So that's $350. So I would say that the stock, it pulls into 100. I would say long-term upside is 350. That's a 3.5x, which is why I'm not super interested at 160, but at 100, I do think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Wow. 3x. That is amazing. The power of disruption, right?
What's next on our list, man?
We got QuantumScape next.
Oh, I love this one. QuantumScape is it was one of those stocks that everybody forgot about, but I don't think anybody should have forgotten about it. They're doing solid state batteries. That was critical for the electric vehicle revolution. I've told you I've cooled on the electric vehicle revolution, but batteries are much more than cars, right?
Mm.
Everything has a battery these days. Your smartphone has a battery these days, but you know what's really going to need a battery? Humanoid robots. I am a huge believer in physical AI. I'm a huge believer in robots. I'm a huge believer in humanoid robots. I do believe that one of the shortcomings, technical shortcomings of humanoid robots today is battery life. If we want a humanoid robot, it's not like, okay, it cleans my house for 20 minutes and then I got to plug it in and charge it for a day and then it does it the next day, right? Like, that's ridiculous. I don't need that. What I need is a robot that is almost forever on and charges super quickly. So the humanoid robot that's going to take over the world is going to be a humanoid robot with a solid state battery. And so I think QuantumScape is quietly emerging as a potential supplier of the humanoid robotics boom. And this week, or was it last week? I think it was last week, they announced the update on their processing line to Cobra, which is a way they do the ceramic separator. Really technical stuff. But long story short, they are taking big steps towards actually commercially producing solid state batteries. And if you do believe that one, solid state batteries are a big part of the humanoid robotics revolution. Two, QuantumScape is the technical and commercial leader in that space. And three, they'll be able to make and supply these solid state batteries to a company like Tesla for the Optimus robot within the next 5 to 10 years. And I don't see why you wouldn't be a buyer of the stock down here at 6.40. It had that massive pop from what? $4 all the way up to $7.65. Now it's come back a little bit. I think it's a dip you may want to buy. I do think the stock has moved and it's been very disappointing for a long time, but I think it's about to get some winning mojo as humanoid robots start to what am I trying to say? Merge. Morph and merge. I was like combining the two words. Merge into the battery realm. I do think QuantumScape becomes a pretty viable supplier pick.
Gotcha. I wanna daydream a little bit. I know
Okay.
Elon's estimated market cap for Tesla once the humanoid robots, or robots in general, become global. But I think he said, what was it, 25 trillion?
25 trillion. Yep.
25 trillion. So let's say QuantumScape is that leading supplier. What does that look like if
Well,
you're
that's the
in
thing, right? I mean,
QuantumScape now?
look at the numbers on this. So that's the thing that's so attractive. Like it's high risk. You may
Yeah,
lose everything on it. It's not for your lunch money. But at a $3.6 billion market cap, you take out its 860 million in cash, you're at a $2.8 billion enterprise value. Elon Musk is talking about Tesla being a $25 trillion company because of Optimus. And here's a company that could be, if they do scale correctly, could be a critical supplier to a $25 trillion juggernaut. Yeah, it's going to be worth more than $2.8 billion. Worth a heck of a lot more than
way more.
$2.8 billion, right? I mean, so yeah, this is a company that really could, I mean, potential multi-hundred-billion-dollar market cap on QuantumScape if you do. A lot of things have to go right.
Right.
And the odds of that happening are very, very, very small. But I think they're high enough to where, hey, maybe you got 50, 60, 70% downside on this name, but 10,000% upside potential. Risk reward to me, I think makes sense on this name. Again, not beer lunch money, not a safe investment at all. But if you're willing to take, a bet, this is better than going down to the local gas station and getting a scratch off. I'd rather you put your money into QuantumScape.
Yeah, yeah. Don't do a 15, 20 leg parlay. Just, get
Yeah,
QuantumScape.
there you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
awesome. That was good. Great stocks this week. Now I want to come back to lifestyle. I want to end on a positive note. I know we had a pretty heavy conversation regarding AI, about productivity,
Hmm.
job loss, things of that nature, just that growing wealth divide. But on a positive spin, since AI is becoming more productive, what are the chances that the American work week gets reduced? You know, we work 9 to 5, 5 days a week, some people more. But what if when we have AI, we have 3 day work weeks, 4 day work weeks? You don't go 9 to 5, you're 9 to 12. What can you give us some positive spins on what we're seeing currently?
Yeah, I would say that's the one positive thing of the AI jobs apocalypse. We talk about a lot of the negatives of it, and the wealth redistribution that's going to happen there, the wealth shifting, the reverse Robin Hood, if you will. But for those that learn how to use AI, for those that keep their jobs safe, for those that become the creative directors of AI architects, if you will, um, I think we'll be able to get away with a 3 day work week. Like I really do think that the productivity unlock of
Mm.
AI is not hype. It is very much real. I use AI all the time in a lot of my work. It's made me so much more productive. I know a lot of people across a lot of professions that are using AI to make themselves so much more productive. Now, with that increased productivity, you have two options. You can either work less or you can have more output. Or maybe there's a third option, you can do both. And I think we're going to increasingly move into a society or an American work standard, global work standard, really, that is doing both. We'll have more output than in a 5 day work week, but we will increasingly be doing a 3 or 4 day work week. And I think the hours will be reduced. Now, throw in self driving cars. We talked about it last week, right? So many people spend an hour commuting to and from work every day, and that's wasted time, either listening to music or podcasts. They got to pay attention to the road. Well, imagine now you're working in that time. Okay. Now imagine you have AI glasses and all of a sudden you have all these desktops and monitors that you're looking at through your glasses while sitting in your self-driving car taking you to work. All of this technology is going to make us way more productive and give us way more time back. So I think we reduce the work day. Maybe it's 9 to 2, 9 to 1, 9 to noon even. You reduce the work week to 4 or 3 days. And I think we will be able to seriously, I do think that within 10 years, take the output of the U.S. economy right now, the U.S. worker right now, call it X. I think in 10 years, if we reduce the American work week to 3 days and we reduce the hours from 9 to 5 to 9 to 2, so cut off 3 hours a day and delete 2 days, I think the output of that same American worker will be X times 1.2. I think you'll get 20% or more output with significantly less work. So yeah, we can still do a 5 day work week, but why? Is life really do we work to live or do we live to work? Right? I think we work to live. I think as humans we work to live. We work just so we can have money so we can do things that we actually enjoy and love. So I think that if most people adopt that mindset, then yeah, we're going to be in a work to live society, and we're going to have much more free time, much more joy in life. Honestly, now again, push is going to come to shove. We're going to have AI job loss, and all of a sudden riots and pickets and all that stuff. So yeah, push will come to shove. But I think there's also a period here where it feels really good for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. I am 100% on board with the work to live sentiment there. I mean, for me personally, I enjoy my job. I'm actually nourished from the creative aspects of my job, but at the end of the day, I want to hang out with my friends. I want to hang out with my family. I want to hang out with my dog. That's we are working to live. So
Yeah,
the
I
work,
think it's just this is the first technology wave I think that's really going to give back to people in a meaningful way. I think it's going to steal from people in a meaningful way as well. But I
right?
think that eventually, once you figure out that transition and figure out UBI and figure out some safety net for folks, um, the net benefit here will be it's giving a lot back to people, specifically giving time back to people. And that's the most valuable asset any of us have. So if we can win time back because of AI, uh, that's a huge win for society. That's a
100%.
massive win. Dollars and cents be damned. Give us time back, and I'll call you a technology that changed lives.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, even from an anecdotal perspective, and not even on a work through the lens of work, I use AI to just synthesize my searches.
Mm.
For example, I was looking up 5Ks. What would have took me maybe 20 minutes in Google searches of like, hey, what's the next 5K I can do? Where? threw a prompt in a chat GPT. It spit out a chart. These 5Ks are happening in August in this area. Here's links to sign up. I saved at least 30 minutes with just a single prompt. It's phenomenal.
Right. Right. Yeah. So I just massive productivity unlock, massive give back of time, massive upside for people. That's kind of how I view it.
Definitely. All right, Luke. I did want to introduce a new section. We're workshopping the title here, exponential question, maybe. And I want to open it up to our audience as well. Type in the comments. What do you want Luke to answer? What are you interested in? What's topical? What's on top of mind for our viewers? In the market in general. I'd like to start it off this week with a question on SPACs. They were the talk of the town during the pandemic. During the pandemic, the amount of money in SPACs was around 170 billion. That cratered to around a billion about last year. But right now, we're back up to the 10 billion mark. So, how do you feel about SPACs? Do you think they're still not what we should be looking into, or is there a chance for a resurgence in that particular niche of the market?
I think SPACs got abused. I
Hmm.
think they're a great vehicle for bringing companies public with less overhead, less costs, at a faster timetable. But I think they got abused by certain individuals, and I think that created such a bad reputation for them that it's going to take more than 3 to 4 years to wipe away that bad rep. And I think that while they may have a resurgence in the next 10 to 15 years, they're not going to have a resurgence now. You are seeing, yeah, so to your point, maybe SPACs are heating up a little bit, but the IPO market is red hot right now.
Yeah.
Relative to the other means of bringing a company public, SPACs are relatively cool. The growth is in the IPO market. And I think that's where the money is going. I think the money is going in that direction. And I don't really like that. I like SPACs because you kind of bypass the gatekeeper, the middleman that is those big Wall Street banks. Those are the ones that lead the IPOs. So I like that value prop of them. And so I do think in the long term that they are going to make a comeback. And I think they're actually better than IPOs. But for right now, if you're a good company in the private markets, you're going to go public via IPO. Okay, you're not going to go public via SPAC just because the reputation is so washed in the SPAC world. It's just not worth it. So you're going to go IPO. And so I think that I'm watching the IPO market a lot more closely than I am the SPAC market. In fact, I'm not even really watching the SPAC market at all right now. All my attention is focused on the IPO market, which again is heating up. It's not like 99 level hot, but it's definitely heating up in a very big manner. And the stocks that have IPO'd have done very, very well. Circle, we've talked about it multiple times in this podcast, is kind of like and CoreWeave are the two biggest winners, which I think are emphasizing, hey, you know what? There's a lot of success to be had by taking the traditional IPO route.
Yeah, Circle was crushing it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Cool. I mean, that answered it for me. I was just pretty curious. It did seem like there was a return. Definitely not to those crazy levels we had a couple years ago, but something to maybe look out for in the future, just not right now.
Absolutely.
Cool. You feel like there's anything we might have missed this week that we didn't already talk about?
No, Brooke, I think we covered a lot of bases today, talking about economic and market and investment implications of a lot of really, really, really big themes. So, what we started with, I think, is the biggest story of our lifetimes. That AI jobs apocalypse, the wealth shift, reverse Robin Hood stuff. That's the biggest story of our lifetimes. I would really dig into that. Whether you're an investor or not, whether you're a worker or not, whether you're retired or not, that is a story you need to know very well to have success in the next 10 years, I think. So I would really dig into that. We'll talk about it more next week and the week after that and every single week until they kick us off of YouTube. We're just going to keep talking about it because it is what we need to talk about to succeed for the next 10 years.
100%. It's definitely not going away. All right. And with that, that is another week of Being Exponential with Luke Lango. We hope to see you next week. Have a good one.